Welcome to the Modern India lecture series. In this lecture, we are going to take chapter 3 and it is the part 4, the European penetration and the British conquest of India. In this lecture, we are going to take the dual system of administration of Bengal and the dark hour for the British power in India. So in those things, we will see that how the British will do two different things. One is will be that they will be doing the business with the East India Company, and another was the controlling the administration of the Bengal. And in the another scenario, we are going to see that the dark hours of the British power in India, it was like the several wars happened between that, where the British failed disastrously, and it was that at the end with the divine and rule the British were able to succeed. So all those things we are going to see in the coming slide. Before moving to the lecture, I will request you to please go through this lecture till the end so that you will have a complete picture of it. Further, I will request you to please subscribe this channel. This is a new channel. I really need your support. Now, the dual system of administration of Bengal. How it was a dual system of administration. So, East India Company became the master of Bengal at least from 1765. Why 1765? It was like from the Battle of Palasi and the Buxar ended. So, after the end of Buxar, where it was seen that the British won the war with the three important states. It was one war. One was your Awadh, another was your central Mughal ruler, and the another was your Bengal. So it gave an image of supremacy. Okay, it gave an image of supremacy. So that's why it was seen that East India Company became the master of Bengal at least from 1765, and they had full control of defense and supreme political power because they made the sad throne to their to the person, to the king, with the which was imposed with a huge compensation. The Dastak was imposed, where in the scenario where the British don't have to pay any taxes for any imports or the exports of the goods. Okay, it was like the completely beneficial in the favor of them. So Nawab became fully dependent upon the British at the time. So as the Diwan, the company directly collect taxes in the form of revenues, while through the right to nominate the deputy subedar. So as in the previous lecture, that is the part 3, we have discussed about the deputy subedar that was appointed by the British. In that, the condition was that nobody was allowed to remove deputy subedar without the permission of the British. Further, the appointment was through the British only. Even any decision need to be taken within the court, it should be taken a prior permission with the deputy subedar. Okay, so it was like the British was indirectly controlling the administration of the whole province. Okay, so while through the right to nominate deputy subedar, it controlled Nijamat or police or the judicial power. So it means what? The both police and the judicial power both were under the control of British. It means what? They are controlling the administration. Okay, so this arrangement is known as the history as the dual or the double government. Okay, where both the power, police and the judicial, were under the hand of British, and the East India Company that are doing the business, and another part they were controlling the empire, and they're having the both the role, police and the judicial power both were under the hand of British only. Okay, so it held a great advantage to the British, a power without the responsibility. Why it is shown? There might be a question come. Describe the statement. British got the power without responsibility during this period. So what was that? British were responsible for only collecting the tax without any responsibility. It means what? Right now we have a government, and we pay taxes to the government, and taxes is and the government is liable to do the duties, certain fundamental duties that he have to perform for us. Okay, like the development ones, giving the jobs and security, many things. Okay, but here in the case was that British was only responsible for collecting the tax, and they were not responsible for any government ruling kind of stuff. Okay, So what is that? I've explained it here. So the Nawab and the officials had the responsibility of administration, but they don't have the power. Okay, so it means like you are telling the chief minister or the another states to rule the state, to rule over the state. Administration under you. If anything goes wrong, people will come to you for the solution, but you don't have the power to execute. So what is the need of it? So what exactly is going in the state? Nothing. Okay, so it held a great advantage to the British, a power without responsibility. The Nawab and his officials had the responsibility of administration, but not the power to discharge it. So the consequences of the Bengal people were the disastrous. So at the end, who was getting benefit? At the end, who was getting affected? It was the people. Okay, so neither the company nor the Nawab cared for the welfare of the people. Oppression of the people between the people was increased. So company started to drain Bengal wealth, extracting the taxes and all everything without any responsibility, without caring about the people. They stopped sending money from England to purchase Indian goods. So there was a business. What was the business? Business was that when a ship will come from Europe to India, so the European goods will come into Indian ports, and those European goods will be sold into Indian markets. Okay, and when that ship will return from India, then that ship will carry Indian goods, and they will sold that Indian goods into the European market. That was the whole scenario. That is the motive of the business. Okay, now when the Indian goods were used to be bought from the ports, it was the British governments. There have to be certain cost price you have to pay. So the cost price was being paid by the British government. Now what happened? They stopped sending money, and they said that whatever the cost price will be incurred in purchasing the Indian goods, you have to incur from the taxes that you are going to earn from the Bengal region. So just imagine what kind of taxes were being collected at the time. Okay, that because the collection of the taxes that was being done from the Bengal, that was used for the purchasing of Indian goods to sold whole in the European market. Okay, that was the whole scenario. So they stopped sending money from England to purchase Indian goods, and instead they purchased these Indian goods from the revenues of Bengal only and sold them abroad. Okay, British government wanted to share from the company by ordering 4 lakh pounds per year. The abuse of the dual government and the drain of wealth led to the impoverishment and exhaustion of that unlucky provinces, that the public only. In 1770, Bengal suffered from a famine, which was the most terrible famines known in the human history. Okay, and remember, it was not the first time that the Indian land suffered from this kind of famine, but the condition was that much deteriorated. The taxes and the collection of the revenues and all that much was deteriorated, that this famine was declared as the most terrible famine in the human history. Okay, because the condition of the people was worst. We know that a particular year rainfall is going to come, and the next year maybe the rainfall will not be there, there will be drought kind of situation, but the kind of earnings they had from the back, they will get the earnings. Okay, even in this kind of situations, even sometimes when the situation happened in the past, there were bankers, the merchant bankers who used to give the loans. Even the Mughal emperor was like that. They will give relief during that year. If the monsoon was bad at that time, then the ruler used to relieve the people by less collection of taxes for that year. But this was not the condition during the British time. Their main motive was to just drain the wealth from the Bengal and put them into the Europe. Okay, that was the main motive. They were not caring about the people. Thus the famine that incurred during the 1770 was declared as the most terrible famines of the human history. Around 1 lakh people died at the time. Though the famine was due to failure of the rains, its effects were heightened by the company's policies. Okay, What does it mean? Just see. Though the famine was incurred by the rains, everybody knows the famine occurs without of if the rain doesn't happen. Okay, but the effect was so much extremely charged due to the British company policy, British East India policy. Okay, it was pushed up. The condition was more deteriorated. Okay, now Warren Hastings wars under Warren Hastings 1772 to 85 and the Cornwallis 1786 to 93 that was taken place. Okay, we will see the Tipu Sultan and all that happened during that period. So the East India Company had by 1772, 1770 was the famine period, 1765 was the period when the Battle of Buxar was ended. So the East India Company had by 1772 become an important Indian power. Their habit of interfering the internal conflict and lust of territory and money soon involved them in a series of wars. What kind of series of wars? They started to war between the Maratha happened, then Mysore happened with the Hyderabad and all. So it was like they understand that okay, that kind of profit is coming from the Bengal. If we have done such kind of thing, we have won the wars. So if we are going to won the wars, then we will have a certain kind of profit from the other regions as well. Okay, so that's what that gave him the test, that gave him the greediness to do the same kind of things as they have done in the Bengal, similar to the other states. Okay, so in 1766 they joined the Nizam of Hyderabad in attacking Hyder Ali of Mysore. This British joined the hand with the Hyderabad, but Hyder Ali forced the Madras councils to sign a peace treaty on his terms with the Nizam. Okay, again in the 1775 English clashed with the Marathas. Okay, and just see, these all Indian soldiers, these all Indian groups, states will collide together against the British, and that was a black period for the British at that time. Okay, and this made the European Parliament to take strict action against the British, because now they moved away from their company's policy to earn profit to war kind of things. Okay, and this should not be encouraged for the company, where, because if you are fighting any war, it means like the wealth is getting drained in that thing also, and you already are giving a profit to the company, so why you should involve in such kind of useless stuff? That was being observed by the British Parliament. Okay, and the strict action were taken, that we will see in the coming chapters. Okay, so in 1775 the English clashed with the Marathas. Intense struggle was for the power between the Peshwa Madhavrao II, led by the Nana Fadnavis, and the Raghunath Rao. So British officials in Bombay decided to intervene on behalf of the Raghunath Rao. Raghunath Rao fled and he joined the hand with the British at the time for the become the ruler of the Maratha kingdom. Okay, so they were in need to do the same like Bengal to Maratha. The British thought, as we have done in the Bengal, we can similarly do to the Maratha, and thus we will get the control over the Maratha kingdom. Okay, but they did completely misjudge them, and at that time whole Sardars that were famous for the disunity, they collided together and they fought against the British and they won it. So this involved them in a long war with the Maratha from 1775 to 1782. So that became the dark for the British power in India. So what was that? We will see. So all the Maratha chiefs, this was the very attractive period for the Maratha, because the Maratha chiefs were famous for the disunity. Okay, but during that time Nana Fadnavis made them, all the chiefs, to be collided together. During this time all the chiefs were united behind the Peshwa and his chief minister Nana Fadnavis. Southern power was also against the British at the time. As I have told, Hyder Ali was also against the British. Okay, so southern power was also against the British. Now the two things, same enemy, collided together. Okay, Hyder Ali and Nizam chose this moment to declare war against the company. Okay, now Nizam was also not in the favor of British. It was like just under the pressure of British they were doing. So now the Nizam was also not in the favor of British. This one Hyder Ali was also not in the favor of British, Mysore, and your Maratha was also not in the favor of British. Three collided together, fought the war, won the war. So Nizam declared war against the company. Thus British were surrounded by the powerful combination of Maratha, Mysore and the Hyderabad. Abroad, British were losing fights in America and the French also. So in the America and French also, they were losing the war, and India also, they are fighting a very harsh war. So the support kind of arsenal and arsenal kind of supports, they were not getting that kind of support during that time, and they were losing the fight in India also. However, British India had energetic and experienced Governor General Warren Hastings. He acted with firm resolve and determination. So neither side won, and peace deal was concluded in 1782 with the Treaty of Salbai. Okay. Now what happened? That's why he is very famous, Warren Hastings, as he observed that we are going to lose the war. Actually, they lost only. So came at a conclusion. He just made a peace deal with all the three alliances. Okay. He acted with it saved British from combined position of Indian powers. This was like they signed the Treaty of Salbai. That was signed. A status quo was maintained. So what is a status quo? A status quo was like before the war, whatever the condition was there, we will restore it. Okay, before war, British was in the Bengal, you do your Bengal. Nizam was in Hyderabad, you rule. Maratha, they were ruling as like that, you rule. And Mysore was in Mysore, you will rule. So that is something like status quo. Status quo means before restore the condition as before the war. That was meant. That was the meaning of a status quo, and that was the Warren Hastings mindset, that he knew that either we will lose the war, or we will get a very huge loss if we put our sole profit or money into this war. Okay, it was not going to give any profit to them. Okay, he observed it. He made a peace treaty of Salbai, where the status quo was maintained. What is status quo? I explained. So it saved the British from combined opposition of Indian powers. This was known as the First Anglo-Maratha War, which did not victory for the either side. It gave 20 years of peace to British and Maratha, the strongest Indian power of the day. But Maratha had continued mutual quarrel within themselves. As I've said, the Maratha chiefs were not united, and we already have discussed all those things in the chapter 1 and chapter 2, I guess. Okay, in the chapter 2, I guess these all things, the Maratha, Mysore and all, we have discussed. Okay, if you are not familiar with these terms, just go to that video, you will get to know everything. I've explained in detail everything. Okay, so the Maratha had continued mutual quarrel within themselves, and Maratha was the greatest power at the time. After the Mughal, the Maratha was there, and Maratha failed to make a pan-India empire because of their disunity within themselves. Okay, but during this war, this was the first time where all the Sardars came together and won the war. But after that, again, same thing happened. Quarrel was happening within them. So the Treaty of Salbai enabled the British to exert pressure on the Mysore, as the Maratha promised to help them in recovering the territory. So at that time, in the Treaty of Salbai, it was like a status quo was maintained. Maratha promised British, if you need any help, I will help you in recovering the territories. And what happened in the Treaty of Salbai? Hyder Ali captured few of the territories of the British, where the British were had control over them. Okay, now the Maratha promised them, we will help you in recovering those territories. Okay, from Hyder Ali. Once again, British had succeeded in dividing the Indian power. The same aim the British had done in the Bengal, divide and rule. And again, they divided this great three alliance, where they made Maratha into their side. Okay, in breaking the Hyder Ali to possess, to acquire the state that they possess, that they acquired with them during that fight, during that war, that the Hyder Ali captured. Okay, that Maratha kingdom promised to British. Okay, and thus divide happened between the three alliance, and this was the divide and rule for the British. But again, in the second war, British will lose. We will see. So Hyder Ali did not stop and started war against the British from 1780 again. British army forced one defeat another, and British army faced one defeat another, and forced them to surrender in large numbers in front of the Hyder Ali. He soon captured almost the whole Carnatic under the Hyder Ali. Once again, British diplomacy worked. After that, Warren Hastings again made the diplomacy to make a peace deal, bribed the Nizam, and he gained his withdrawal from the anti-British alliance. Okay, now two things happen. Here we have discussed how British made Maratha to their side. Here British made Nizam to his side. Now alliance broken. Mysore was in the top for them, because what happened? British saw Hyder Ali and Hyder Ali's son Tipu Sultan as a main main enemy for them to expand towards south. So thus they figured it out, Warren having figured it out, that if we divide this alliance and we made them all the alliance in our end, and Hyder Ali on another other side, we will get control over it, and we will have extension in the southern part as well. Okay, that was the main motive. So Warren Hastings bribed the Nizam and gained his withdrawal from the British alliance. During 1781 to 82, he made peace with Marathas and thus freed large part of his army for use against Mysore. Now, as he get the support of the Maratha, he used the Maratha army against the what? Mysore, against Mysore. Now the alliance has been broken. Understand? Earlier in the first war, Mysore, Maratha and Nizam was together. Now Maratha was already broken, Nizam was already broken. Now the Mysore is alone. So in July 1781, they defeated Hyder Ali and saved Madras. Okay. After that, Tipu Sultan continued the war. So after Hyder Ali's death, 1782, Tipu Sultan continued the war. None of the side was in the position of winning. Thus, peace deal was again signed in the 1784. Tipu Sultan was a kind of person. He said, like, if you want to live, don't live like a coward kind of person. Live like a lion. Okay. If you want to die, don't accept any losing kind of thing. If I want to die, I will die like a lion or a king. Okay. That was the main thing of the Tipu Sultan. That was the main objective of the Tipu Sultan. Okay. So peace deal was signed in 1784. Thus British was displayed as a weak to defeat either Maratha or Mysore at the time. So as the Tipu Sultan continued the war, yes, the Nizam Hyder Ali died, but then Tipu Sultan continued the war, and again the war did not come into end, because the war and nothing understand. Okay, again we are not going to win the war. Okay, and thus the treaty was signed again. But at the end we will see that in the 1799 Tipu Sultan will be killed during the war. Okay, yeah, here. That I thought waiting that part. Yeah. So the third British encounter with the Mysore was more fruitful. Now the again third encounter with the British. Peace deal of 1784 did not remove a struggle between Tipu and British. It had merely postponed the struggle, but the war was still, but the struggle was still between them. Authority of East India Company were hostile towards Tipu. They looked upon him as the barrier of the South India, as I've explained earlier. Further, Tipu did not like as they look him as a chief danger on his own independent territory. He's like, I am in India, I am ruling for the state, you are an American, why should I have a problem anything if I am ruling in my state? It is my territory, I am ruling it. Whatever I am doing, it is my territory. You are living in another continent and you have any problem with that. Why? That kind of scenario was here. That Tipu Sultan was telling that I am a chief danger for my in my independent area. What kind of things you are telling? Okay. So war between the two started in 1789 and ended with the Tipu's defeat in the 1799. He did not accept the war lose, and he died with the fighting in the war like a lion. Treaty of Seniapatnam was signed with the Tipu defeat, and half of his territory territory was given to the English, and the allies paid 330 lakhs of rupees as indemnity. Okay, so this was all about in this lecture. I hope you have liked this video. Please like and subscribe. This is a new channel. I really need your support. Further, if you want any on-demand video lecture, please feel free to ping on my Twitter handle. If you want this PPT and all, just ping me or comment me. I will help you. Thank you.